No, we need it
Okay,
open.
call the roll.
Oh, yes. Alderman Pecorelli,
Here.
Alderwoman Day,
Here.
Alderman Craig.
Here.
Dennis is absent. I have
No,
John-
no, he's here.
Oh. John Howard,
He's here.
Mira,
Here.
and Mohammed. We'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
This is up in the
Okay.
important area.
I'm here.
Yep.
Allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Say one more time on record. There's a box of cousin subs over there, Dennis.
Oh, thank you.
From John Ringus, Economic Development. They have a meeting here, it just ended. So there's leftovers, cookies, apples, water, and subs.
And the coffee's still warm.
Coffee's still warm.
All right. We did the roll.
Yep.
Citizens comment period. I don't think you see anybody here to join us, so we can go ahead and close that. And then it looks like first order of business is reviewing the minutes from both the week of September and the first week of October. So we'll take them one by one. September 24th, if you had a chance to look at those.
I move the minutes be approved.
I think they might have just gotten cut off with the last couple motions to adjourn and whatever, if it was printed on the second page maybe, or I'm not quite sure. You might make
Yeah, I'm not sure because,
a notation, just,
yep.
it looks like it's just,
It's on the e-copy though.
Is it?
Yeah.
Then I wonder if it just it printed double-sided then.
exactly
So we'll make sure that that first one.
with that notation. I
And
guess.
withdraw the motion.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we'll make notation of the second page items. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Next meeting date was September 26th. Again, continuation of the budget discussion primarily.
Yeah, I move the minutes be approved.
We have a motion to approve, we have a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion? Meeting minutes, September 26th, hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Moving to October then. First date was October 7th. Again, continuation of the 2025 budget discussion primarily. We had the library and other groups here, I think, that night.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve, do you have a second? Motion and a second, any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Then we had that same week, October 9th, Finance Committee meeting. Again, primarily reviewing 2025 recommended budget.
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing, seeing none. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. All right, thank you. And now, moving to the topic of the hour again is the 2025 mayor's recommended budget. So Danielle, do you want to share with, it looks like you've got
Yeah.
some handouts for us?
Yes. So the first two pages are the ones that we're going to be talking about first, and this is mostly the first page is what I use to determine the total tax levy, and then the second page is the levy impact per thousand or 100,000 value, so that we can talk about the actual increase. So you'll see in column 2024, our prior year levy was 23,455,000. This year we include the personal property aids that we received from 2024. We minus our debt service levy, and last year we allocated $539,000 of our debt service payments to the levy, which gave us our adjusted levy, and we can increase our levy by the net new construction percentage. That was 1.58 this year, which increased our total levy to $23,353,000. We have to reduce the personal property aids, which you'll see there is an increase due to that Act 12 legislature that passed this year. I know that we talked about that. We were given additional personal property aid for all the personal property that was taken off of the tax roll. Our allowable debt service levy did go up a little bit this year, and that was to account for some increase in debt service payments and also some increased expenditures in the general fund. I increased that to $818,400, which means our maximum allowable levy this year is going to be $23,883,336. So overall, I just rounded that to a flat $23,883,300. So that's what you'll see on the levy limit worksheet that is due in December, based on these changes if these are approved. So the general fund allocation is $20,975,600, which has increased a little over $350,000 from last year. We did meet, Kelly, the mayor, and I, and determined $25,000 of the levy was going to be added to the library to help support their operating budget this year. It's not the full amount that they requested. I believe they requested $1,485,000, but we tried to do a little bit of an increase to help them. The street improvement fund, part of that decision to allocate some additional funding to the street improvement fund was based on last year's Act 12 additional supplemental aid that we got. And then again, the debt service levy, we needed the $1.14 million to support all of our principal and interest payments for this year, or for 2025. So that being said, the second page, after taking all the time that I could and put together the next two documents for us to get a flat budget with the levy that's being proposed, the proposed tax rate for the city of Franklin would be going from $4.05 to $3.78. Based on the residential value change, it would be a 2.9% tax increase on the residents, which would be about $11.68 per $100,000 in value that your home is. So based on that, I wanted to stop and see if anybody wanted to discuss that piece.
I'd like to.
Before
Can
we
you
move
give me
into
those two numbers again? The last year and this year. Oh, thank you. I got it. 405 to 398. Thank you.
378.
Or 378. Okay.
Yep, it's on the
So-
second page, Courtney.
Yeah.
This one,
Oh.
Courtney. So
yeah.
the
I
kicker
see.
is.
Oh, yeah, right there.
As I'll start. So the kicker is, yes, the tax rate has gone down, and when we looked at everything that we had to do in we got you a little fancy schmancy thing. And
That's because when we're in council, if I need to pull out and do math, I don't want to do it on my phone.
so, I guess when we looked at it, and we drilled down after every meeting and then before the meetings to bring forward to make sure that we were bringing forth the most responsible budget to come through, which continued at the high level of services, continued to focus on employee recruitment and retention, and look at core services not being cut, no layoffs, where we're looking at everything we can put together to make sure we are giving the city the highest level of service we can provide without, coming across with getting hammered. And we have costs that we have no control over that are just, it's tough to keep things moving forward with no money on keeping it flat. And from last year, I think it was 1.1, increase this year's a 2.9. Hopefully, we'll be in a better position next year with that new construction going up. With the assessments properly being in and everything else, we should be in a much better spot. But still, I mean, I'm as fiscally conservative as we all are here and responsible. Nobody's reckless about anything. There's nowhere you're going to cut. There's no, excesses to trim. And that's why I really enjoy having 3 electeds on here, because I sat on here as elected, so you can really wrap your head around these things, which you see and have been a part of this whole process. And this whole process is not easy. This whole process is very cumbersome. It's very in the weeds, and it's designed to be that way. So I hope everybody sees the reasons to why to do this. And, if there's a way in which somebody thinks they can do something a little better individually, bring it. But to me, and I don't want to increase, but my goodness, we in order to be where we're at in the city, we had to do something. I yield.
So I'll make 2 additional points. One point was going back after we received the preliminary assessed value information from the assessor. I did some calculations, and based on the total department request budget that was presented to finance, it would have been well over a 5% tax increase if we gave each department every request that they had asked for. So that's where some of the challenges were over the last couple of weeks, trying to narrow that down to a responsible and respectful tax rate that wouldn't be too much of a burden on the residents. And the other point I wanted to make is, again, that first document, unfortunately, the only thing we can increase our levy by is net new construction and debt service. And we don't set ultimately the percentage for net new construction that is set by the state and given the information from our assessor. And our debt service levy can only go up by the allowable amount that we need on an annual basis to make debt service payments. So again, we were only levying for about half of our annual debt service payments. This year we increased it to give us some extra cushion in our general fund. But again, if we only need 1.1 million, we can't really increase our debt service levy much more, as we're already at 818,000. So it's just important to keep that in mind as we make decisions.
Comment here, go ahead.
So do we know roughly, because the previous 2 years our net new construction was into the 2s. Do we know what 0.5% of net new construction, what that turns into on the tax impact side?
Yeah, I can do the calculation, but the only reason it was in the 2s is because we got that additional bump from TID 3 closing and TID 4 closing.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it from the standpoint of part of the explaining this might be, hey, we had a drop in net new construction and that yields this kind of change. Because that's not necessarily completely in the city's control.
No, like I said,
It's
our net new construction last year was actually 1.76, so it wasn't a dramatic change, but like I said, we got an extra bump, that 0.5%, because we closed one of the TIDs.
Yeah.
So it's been steady at the,
At this
other
point,
than
1.5.
2021, but yeah. But yeah, absolutely, I can.
If we went to the maximum allowable levy, how much more would be in there?
You give me 2 seconds.
You don't have those numbers just right.
No, but I got the spreadsheets right here. I've been working on them and going back and forth with them for weeks now. All right. Ready, John?
Yep.
Right, all right. I just typed it wrong.
Just notice there's birds on the cup.
Oh,
By design. She
Taunting
donated
you.
the coffee.
Great. Glad I don't drink it.
5.3%
Ouch.
5.3.
increase.
Percent?
Yep, it would have been
Okay.
$3.84.
So we're leaving some money on the table then. As far as the maximum is concerned.
Correct.
Could you say that again?
I said we're leaving some money on the table as far as the maximum is concerned.
Yeah,
Yes,
which
you're
we do
correct.
on an annual basis, like I said,
Because you
to
don't
keep.
get to make that up in future years, right?
No.
Right. So,
One comment I do want to make, and it necessarily may not be appropriate to this discussion directly, but our fund balance, I think we're in a very, very favorable position. And I know there's limitations on certain things that it can or cannot be used for, and I don't pretend to know what they all are. But I'm just wondering if, as we kind of go through this process, if there's items that really, really have a priority in the minds of the elected officials, if that's not an area that we should at least be looking at or considering, because I think given where it's at, it's above our policy limits, and we need to be making some kind of adjustments, I think, in that area, regardless. So I'm not saying it necessarily is all a budgetary item per se, but I think as we go through this discussion, if there's places where we think there's something that has an urgency or need and it needs to get funded on a current year basis or whatever, I'm wondering if that's not an avenue to at least consider.
Yeah, so I'm in support of following our policy, and I know it states that yes, we are over our limits, and it should be used on one-time purchases, contingency options, capital purchases. I know that we did anticipate transferring, 800 and I believe it was 837,000 over to the capital fund. Let me think I put it in here. To
As part of
support-
24?
As
or
part of 25 to
25?
support the capital projects so that we didn't have to borrow the $2 million.
Okay.
And I think we would have borrowed it if the rates would have been more favorable, so I think it's probably advantageous to use that money that we have sitting there.
But yeah, something I plan on bringing up right at the beginning of the year is going over our fund balance policy and coming up with some strategies on how to spend some of that down.
And I know in past years we've kind of used the contingency category in different ways. I don't know if it makes sense, but there again, I'm wondering if there's some items that we don't put in the budget, but again might be viewed as high priorities again if we couldn't use the contingency as a side kind of item. And again, if we've got fund balance that's in excess, maybe we got a funding source or a source of funds again right there in a one-time item type thing,
Yep.
et cetera.
So was there any further discussion on the tax rate portion in the levy itself overall? No?
When is this info going to be forward faced?
Next council meeting.
Council?
No.
I know.
Yes, it could be
November
the next
6th,
council meeting, but it's just the recommended changes. The
Yeah.
overall tax information would typically be presented through the adopted budget presentation.
Got it. Just no one to anticipate my phone ringing.
Yeah, we would go over the
Yeah.
overall levy portion next week with the recommended changes, but don't have to go over any sort of tax rate impact at the moment.
But you're close to getting to publication time, right? Where you've got to put something
Correct.
out in the.
I had to send it this morning.
Okay.
So the publication went out, but there was no tax rate information on the publication notice.
Okay. That's just the
Just the
projected
overall. Yep, just
revenues
the
and
number,
expenses.
the summary.
Any other comments? Questions on
The levy or the rates?
kind of takes it at the 10,000 foot level and gives you a piece. But again, keep in mind, the thing is, everybody knows this. This discussion right here, when you get your tax bill in early December, is less than what, about 25%, a little under.
25,
So-
yeah.
Are we able to use general funds to take care of some of our asbestos abatement that's needed?
It should be capitalized. We should be using capital funds on that. Are you talking about in the help wing?
Yeah, there's a couple areas actually that I've noticed now that it's been brought to my attention that and there's lower level too, there's a ceiling tile that I was just notified of. Ceiling tile downstairs and a couple areas where the tiles are cracked or broken and stuff.
Floor tiles you're talking?
Yeah.
Well, we have a few more weeks to talk about it for the 25 budget. So, okay, so if we move on to the next piece, tonight we are actually only going to be talking about the general fund and the sewer fund. Because I still need a little more time on the self-insurance fund. So I was trying to think of a way different from last year, just presenting this overall spreadsheet for you. And so, as I presented to council last week, I typed up this little memo to give it a little bit more generalized, and then can ask questions from there. I wasn't sure if everybody wanted to go line by line, item by item as to why the increase. But overall, again, looked at the preliminary assessed values, determined the levy, and came up with what the final revenue projections were for 2025. With that, gave me ultimately the additional a pot of money to start allocating to some of these department head requests above and beyond the flat budget, and taking into consideration what each department head had said at the meetings. And so overall, this is what I'm presenting. So it's providing inflationary increases in most areas, secures all the costs and the high delivery of services, the overall personnel piece. I took your feedback from the last meeting and implemented a flat 2% for everybody, which reduced our overall personnel cost by roughly $29,000. And then additionally lowered because of the interdepartmental charges going over to the sewer fund, the water fund. So some of those changes and increases were put in here, which also reduced our personnel costs. So we can just start on page 1. I can go down. You can see our levy dropped. In the first one, revenues. The general tax levy went down $264,000 from the mayor's recommended budget. That was just due to the preliminary numbers and what I had at that time. Now more finalized. There was nothing anticipated for the E-plan review that did go to council and has been approved, and so we wanted to put some revenue projection in the 25 budget. For those that don't know, E-Plan Review is a new source and program through the Inspection Services Department, and what it does is it allows this company E-Plan to do reviews for all of their planning reviews that would normally go to the state. It allows developers to go through this service now at a different cost than what the state charges, and then the city also gets a kickback 10% of those fees where we were getting nothing from the state initially. So I went on and I know I talked to Alderwoman Day about this. I went on to some of the other municipalities in the area that are using E-Plan. and saw that a few of them had projected roughly $10,000 in their budget, so I figured that to start with us, we don't know how much revenue we're going to be receiving this first year, so 10,000 seemed like a fair number to put in the budget. Fire inspection fees, I had $7,000 in there, and then after meeting with Chief Mayor at the finance meeting, I was made aware of the change that we no longer charge for inspection services. So I took that out of the budget. The video service provider aid, we do get roughly $90,000. However, in late September, I got the finalized number from the Department of Revenue, which increased us by a little over $7,000. So I put that increase in the budget. The water loan that the general fund lent to the water department back in 2014, I believe it has 2 years left on it, and so it's paying some minimal interfund interest. That was $867. I put that in there. Ambulance services, I recommended $1.6 million in the budget, but after looking at the past couple of years of what we've actually collected, what we're projected to collect in 2024, and the anticipation of increasing our ambulance fees in 2025, we're projected to hit about a little over 1.7 million for 2024. So I increased that by 82,000 to give us a little bit more of a cushion to provide some additional funds to the departments. That was kind of the last one. I went through the expenditures, saw what I needed, and said, okay, I can play with roughly 100,000 in ambulance services, and 82 is the final number. So that is it for changes to the revenue portion of the general fund. Does anybody have any questions on that?
There was some discussion about fee changes in other areas also, were there not?
Correct.
Like,
I wanted to be conservative
Correct,
because
okay.
I wasn't sure when those changes were
Yeah.
going to happen, when they were going to be implemented. Typically, that's done through the clerk's office, and I know with the presidential election and all of that, to say we have more revenue in 2025 come the end of the year, I'm fine with that, but decided to keep the numbers as they are for now.
And I can just interject as well. So conversations from an engineering standpoint, there is documentation that Mike Paulos is going to get me, so that way we can kind of adapt it to our use. But what they do over at Muskego, who uses Brave to do essentially the same thing, is they have a verbiage in all of their documentation that essentially says you're paying for the services. It's 1 for 1. So whatever many hours the engineering department's going to spend on your project, you will be charged that time. So it's a pass through. So
Big game changer.
Yeah. So, the only things that we would technically should be paying for are city projects.
And I think to piggyback off of that, I think what will happen is you'll see something similar to what the planning department did, where the planning department, they really increased their fee schedule to accommodate that type of planning department usage, you could say. Because right now what the engineering department does is they include just a flat number in their application fee. So we would be essentially taking the money from the application fee, a flat fee, no matter how. Oh, I thought that's how it was supposed to
I
work.
thought so too. And then I was talking with them today, and Mike said that they actually don't do that only because you can't predict how much time you're going to spend per project. Because if you have a lousy engineer company working on your project, you will likely put a lot more time in than if you had a good engineering firm that had everything taken care of. So one way or another, you're kind of paying. It just depends on if you're paying us for it or if you're paying your engineer for it. And So that was kind of, because I had thrown that out there too, and Mike corrected me on it, that,
Okay, yeah, 'cause
that that's how they do it over there. at
My
the
assumption
school.
was we include services in our application fee.
Right,
Which I think we do.
we do, and I
But-
think we could probably look at adjusting
Yes.
those as well. Yeah.
Does this mean we're gonna have a list of preferred partners to work with as far as if someone wants to build Interstate Battery wants to come to town and build a factory that, like, if you really wanna work with us, go see Dale. He'll get you set up.
So
Or
we
is it-
already have something to that effect.
Okay.
For stormwater management, we, and obviously this is prior to this, we have Grafe and Harwood who committed to charging the same dollar amount. And then for construction, we have, R.A. Smith, Rupert Milky, and I'm not sure who the third one is. It might be Grafe as well, but I'm not sure. I don't think that there was a lot of business that was occurring with them over the last decade-ish. So they all commit to the same hourly fee. And that way, those would be the recommended engineering firms for developer-driven projects.
And I remember the
Typically
city
what occurs.
engineer, it was probably one of the last meetings of the year. He does bring forward those contracts that are approved. I think there was 5 or 6 of them for the 2024-2025 year.
Yeah, so I know that there's 3 different groups for construction, and then there's 2 for stormwater, and I guess, I don't know where we're at on that. I doubt that anything has actually been done, so we'll probably have to put that in high gear, see if we can extend out what we have. I'm not exactly sure, so.
Those are the 5
Dig into it.
percenters that we did.
Yes. Yep.
And I think the municipal judge was talking about fines and forfeitures adjustments as well, somewhere
For
in the
sure.
motion, right?
There was a discussion, a very more planned discussion with her, with updating a number of forfeitures that hadn't been touched in a long time, and bringing them up just because not only are we talking about with the judge with municipal ordinances, we're also talking with restructuring of our rentals for the parks. And look, I mean, we're behind in a lot of areas that we need to now very proactively address, and that will be proactively addressed.
And just to piggyback off of that real quick, the court fees, you'll see that, for the last few years, they had rapidly declined. However, since election of the new judge, she must really be getting them, because we are way over on collection of fines for 2024, so.
Yeah. And I can say too that we are really outdated on a lot of our fee schedules. I know that one of the things the clerk had alerted me to in the past was, I believe it's fire alarms. A permit costs $5, but obviously it
it's insane,
actually
right.
costs us more to process it than the $5 we're collecting. So I think we need to really go department by department and make sure that we're recouping where we can, and that we're in line with neighboring municipalities.
That was going to be my comment. If there's anybody that hasn't looked at their fee schedules within the last, 3 to 5 years, at least before, this inflation and pricing really took a hike, just to see where we are with other municipalities, because I think there's quite a few that haven't been updated in a while.
Right.
I've requested from the clerk's office to get me at least the clerk's office fee schedule so I can take a look at it. And that's your typical licenses, permits, animal licensing we can't increase because that's done with the county. We do inflationary increases to our impact fees annually.
The one thing that just popped into my head that we're probably not keeping pace with, on the health department side, the majority of Angie and Jamie's salaries comes back to us from the inspections that they do, the fees that they collect. So if we're not increasing the inspection fees at the rate that we're increasing salary, we're falling behind. So
Great point.
just the thought on that, it just came, because I know that when I was health officer, we came forward to adjust fees, so that was at least 3 years ago, maybe longer.
You said Angie
But
and
if
who?
we've done
Jamie.
Jamie
I
Kinzel.
don't think Jamie's here.
Angie Byer and Jamie Kinzel. But, I mean, Jamie's only, I think, a 0.1 or a 0.15, but Angie's full-time. But yeah, we're not keeping up with their salary increases because we have to give a portion of those fees back to the state, so. And then my other thing, because I will beat this until nobody wants to listen to me talk about it anymore. The lift assist fee for fire, I really, really think it's something we should look into. When I was in TOSA, now granted, TOSA has a lot of very large senior living facilities, very much larger than what we have here, but same scenario. It's the same mantra. They don't want, if somebody falls, they just don't want to pick them up. They want fire to come and do it. They don't need to be transported. It's not like these are people that are then going to the hospital. It's just, they fell out of bed or they fell, getting out of their chair, and then they call EMS to come and pick them up, and then EMS goes back. And it's not punitive on the patient. It was a fee that was charged to the facility just to kind of recoup the time and whatnot. And it's not to discourage them from going up, but at least it kind of recoups some of the resource drain that happens from having to continuously go out for those types of calls. So I know that historically, Chief Remington and Chief Mayer have kind of been like, I don't know if I want to go there, but I know a lot of cities do it
I like
because
it.
So we wouldn't be on an island doing it.
Is it liability?
From
what originates?
It's Medicare and it's the facility. So Medicare gets real funky about falls and how they reimburse things based on what caused the fall, and a liability standpoint from the facility, because if they pick them up and injure the patient or the resident as they're picking them up, or if the person that works there injures their back or somehow, then it's work comp. So it's a whole conglomeration of things. So it's just easier for them to call 911 and have EMS come out and pick Mrs. Smith up and put her back in her chair, and then off they go.
I like it.
See,
But doesn't that
Waterford-
shift the liability to
The city.
the city then?
Yeah.
Yeah, we should be charging way more.
Yeah,
Yeah, it
absolutely.
certainly does.
So
Yeah.
Waterford a couple of years ago did implement that, and that was something that I pushed for there, and I have pushed for it here. I mean, it was probably one of my first meetings with Chief Remington and Shannon, and it was just not really looked at. It was there was a little bit of pushback because you're trying not to burden the residents, and I explained how it would be on the facility. I think Waterford's was, it was like $450, and then they also implemented a no transport fee too. I mean, if we have to go to your house, and even if you fall at your home and we have to, pick you up, it was a $150 fee, where they were not charging for those sorts of things before. So that's what I have again pushed for, just with you.
Good. That's a perfect thing to work on.
Yeah.
I've hoped that Chief Mayer and
Yeah, I mean, TOSA's been doing it for a long time, so I mean, I'm sure Chief Case has plenty of, plenty of data for, if it decreased their run volume or if they're, at least, making a little bit of money off of it.
absolutely, you're going there already.
I don't know how the billing system you have to, just make sure you think it all the way through. I don't know if that can be something that's an add-on or something.
Oh yeah, it's just an additional code, and the
Yes. It's
the ambulance
doable.
driver would just hit
Absolutely.
that button instead when they were checking the patient out. And
Otherwise,
Yeah, I mean, bottom line is we're giving a lot away
Yes, we
for
are.
very little. And, one of the pieces of that too, and we've said this, I can't even tell you how many times at council, is our events. Our event permits are absolutely ridiculous. Our fireworks permits are absolutely ridiculous.
1980.
Yeah, these things, we really just need to fix it across the board and bring it up so that way we can actually cover our expenses.
right.
We're going to try to bring something back yet this year, hopefully in December, maybe to bring back, start getting that to council so we can start moving things forward like right away. And,
Yeah, I think it would be ideal if we can if we can do what we can by the new year so we can implement it January 1.
Well, especially there with fire, I mean, they have such large call volume, you know, and all over the scope. And I mean, we just saw the cost of that equipment, whether it's a new ambulance or box retro or,
Right.
I mean, and
Packing
you
on the
gotta
miles
have
every day,
it.
running to
Right,
and
yeah,
from.
Right.
and the miles are rolling on, and
We have to. We don't have a choice.
you know,
Let's be honest, if the fee was high enough, they would do it themselves. Because it's a business, right?
Yep.
So they're
Right.
looking at the difference between what we charge and what they charge, and they're picking the better option, right? So it's different than someone in their home, right? That's a
Right.
kind of a different scenario, but these are businesses, let's be honest. They're
Right, yeah.
For-profit businesses.
Right.
Same thing with park rentals. They're not going to the county because we're cheaper. Bounce houses, we're cheaper. All this cheaper. Yeah, we have great entities. So we're in a, there's a whole, I think we should really attack this very aggressively to get this moving. So we have to. So
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's, we need to increase our revenue.
All right.
We need to recoup that money.
So, move on to the expenditure side. I'll go through each department and stop me if you have questions, and I'll just kind of briefly touch on what the change is. And if you need to reference anything, it's gonna be on this document, your little spreadsheet. And if you have a specific question about an item, let me know, because that's why I brought my computer. I can go in and see what the department actually requested, so. First one I wanted to point out was the merit pool. We allocated $125,000 to the merit pool. I know there had been some discussion on possibly changing that policy or implementing the policy, but changing the role and the way that it works. And so I figured that since we still have some funding in it, over $50,000 for 2025, I think that removing it from the 25 budget to really dive into creating that policy and implementing it and making sure that it works, then look at furthering funds for 2026. So did that. Legal services, we removed $20,000 from the budget. That was just due to the city attorney providing me his request after the mayor's recommended budget came out, and he actually reduced his special attorney services by $20,000, so I implemented that. Insurance. Overall, there was some big changes to our insurance, and insurance is building insurance, liability insurance, workman's comp. So it's a minimal change overall of $510, but I just wanted to point out the changes that we did have. So our building insurance went up, I believe it was 7%. I don't remember that email, but I think it was 7%. So ultimately it was a $24,000 increase. But our public liability insurance went down by $24,000, so that was pretty much a wash. Our workman's comp insurance actually reduced. Our modification factor lowered a little bit, and so our workers' comp insurance was reduced by $63,000 for 2025, which then on the flip side gets added to the contra, which is the portion that gets reduced from salaries. So those were the changes to that, which so equaled $510 of reduction overall. The police department, there was an increase of a little over $16,000. The overall changes were, again, actually it wasn't salary, because salary, I think we kept salary at 3% for the police department to keep favorable with the fire contract. But there was some increases. They were asking for additional funding for uniforms, and that was due to what's in their contract. Not uniforms, radio maintenance. They had requested a little extra in radio maintenance and data cabling, firearm supplies, auxiliary support, and crime prevention materials. And so those changes I just increased to what the department had requested based on the feedback from the finance committee meeting. And so that change was $16,000. The fire department, the change is $35,000 extra in their department budget. Again, a lot of that is from reallocating some insurance costs. Let's see, increase in medical services, conferences and schools, auto maintenance. Vehicle support, telephone. What I'll point out is a lot of these utilities have been adjusted in each of these departments to be a little bit more actual to what we've spent over the last few years, especially gas, electric, telephone. So you'll see almost every department has a little bit of an increase in their utilities, water services. And the only other thing was turnout codes. So that was based on the feedback again when Chief Mayer gave the presentation at the Finance Committee meeting. Took some of those recommended changes and some additional ones that they had in their budget and produced an extra $35,000 to the fire department budget. IT services. The reason that went down $61,000 is because again I had to redo based on all the salaries. I had to redo all of the interdepartmental allocations, and now that we have the additional IT person Nathan, we were going back to allocating a lot of Ryan. Is he now the engineer, IT engineer? Allocating his time over to the police department. So that really reduced a lot of their expenditures and their overall salaries. So
it was really just labor that's the
Correct.
change as opposed to, okay.
it was just labor that is now being allocated to other areas. And then the Ring Central system, that increase was not actually put into the 25 budget.
What was that?
The Ring Central,
The telephone.
Yeah.
yeah, the monthly or the monthly fee.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have that in 2024, it wasn't moved forward into 2025 when he requested it. So we had to add that back into the budget.
Okay. So that is in here. So that's net. The 61 down is actually net of that increase plus all
Correct,
the-
yep,
okay.
that's on the first page towards the bottom, it
Yep,
was like 37,000, yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Municipal court, they see an increase of $1,500. That is due to the telephone, that language line that the council just approved the judge to start using at the court. That was $400. And a little bit of inflationary increases that they needed for membership and dues, conferences and schools. I know the judge has a mandatory conference that she goes to, and then software maintenance. Administration, they saw a $9,000 increase. Again, a lot of it will be a reduction in the salary side, very minimal, but then an increase in the expenditure side. What are you getting, Kelly?
I think it's
It's postage and,
postage,
and
yeah.
office supplies,
so
and
all
that
the departments kind of draw from administration's
Yeah.
bucket of office
postage,
supplies and postage. Woo-hoo!
well, and postage is going up again.
Yeah.
It went up in July, and I believe it's set to go up to 69 cents in 2025.
And
So
didn't we have a postage machine replacement or something like that? I want to say that I thought there was something that was required.
that was a 20. We just replaced that machine in 2024.
Okay. So not related, but
So the clerks, again, a reduction in salaries and an increase of $1,100. That was in filing fees, which we do recoup some of that from Milwaukee County Register of Deeds. But that needed to be increased because that's just gone over budget every year. We never know how many filings we're going to have to do on an annual basis. And an increase in office supplies and printing. The interdepartmental charges and allocated insurance costs, those needed to be increased just a little bit due to the increase in wages. So that increase was almost $1,200. The health department, their budget went down $186. The health director did ask for just a small increase in medical supplies and mileage and technology that was a whopping $200, so we gave that to her and then just lowered the salaries. The planning department, the only change there was salaries and then also a reduction in $10,000 for contractual services that we no longer need because we're fully staffed. Municipal buildings, I know that the mayor had requested that our supervisor gets a little bit of extra money for tools that he desperately needs. There's a $10,000 increase, roughly. It's $1,000 for tools. What else did I have in here? Some minor things, shredding. That's an annual or monthly expenditure. Landscaping materials, it was either quoted out at around $7,000 or provide him at half the cost the resources that he needs to do it himself. So we increased that budget a little bit, but still lower than the quotes. So that's what that is.
And that's what I would recommend too for certain things like carpet cleaning and that sort of thing, that we could rent a carpet cleaner from one of these big box stores and have him do it.
Yep, absolutely. Where am I at? Highway sees an increase of 17,500. The bigger increase is for, where did I see that? Phone, traffic signal maintenance, equipment rental and building maintenance. His department request was way lower than the recommended budget, so again, was just trying to provide some additional assistance to him there. The parks, I mean, it's obvious our parks need some work, so additional $5,000 in park maintenance, and then just a small increase for phone and utilities. Economic development, that change was, the economic development director wanted additional money for the recognition. The business lunch that they do annually typically costs more than $5,000 now that there's more businesses attending. And so $5,000 was what he has had in the past. So I bumped it up to the $11,000 that he requested. And again, I just think it's important to recognize our businesses in our municipality, and $11,000, yeah.
Yeah.
And the other thing was, it's under sundry contractors, but I know there had been some talk, and I don't know if Kelly or the mayor want to touch on it at all, but some talk about a public relations officer doing some work with our economic development director to get some business information out through a public relations effort instead of him. So that was
right.
$10,000.
So right now, the Mayor Christine, as most of you have already met and talked and worked with her, she's the electeds anyway. That she's does all our basically our press releases on that. She's assisting Regetz with his annual business appreciation night with messaging. She's also been able to put things on our city's website, which are current. And so she's really, and she's very, very, very part-time, but I think she's proven herself and over the last 6 months, and I think that it's very prudent for the city to get that messaging out there. It's not like we're throwing money at someone we don't know. She's already proven herself, so I think it's a very wise expenditure.
Yep.
And in the grand scheme of things, it's really minimal expense to get the positive impact in the community, to get that information out of what we are actually doing and how we're moving the community forward. And with the economic development, if we can attach it to certain projects or jobs, we will obviously do that. But some of it will just be marketing the city itself.
And what's one last tidbit, what's interesting, and I can be fact checked on this, Oak Creek's has a marketing person, a department with a marketing person and an assistant. So what are they spending their money on? Promote, build. So they've really gone all in on that staffing commitment. And I don't know where they made it up elsewhere or whatever, but I mean, we're looking at spending a smittens to do what they actually have 2 full-time employees for, which is crazy.
Yeah, they added that department, I think, over
Recently.
this year.
Yeah.
So it's at least the manager, director, and then a assistant. I thought they were looking at hiring a third. I don't know, but
Well, it's 2 for sure,
yeah.
from what we were told. So that's
How big is their budget?
similar to ours. I mean, I don't have the numbers right now, but I think last year's budget was pretty similar to ours.
I don't know. I know when I had when we were doing the water piece, my counterpart over at Oak Creek, Andrew Vickers, had asked me how the budget was going, and it said that he had to find $750,000 in their budget. So I know, it's the challenges obviously exist everywhere. It's just a challenging time, I think, to do any of this.
Hi. The engineering department, their budget went down roughly $40,000, and that was mostly due to, again, the allocation of engineering services, due to some of the larger developments that we have coming forward in TID 8, TID 9, and some other possible development projects in 2025. A lot of the allocated services for the finance department, the engineering department, the economic development department, those salaries get pushed over to the TIDs. So that was a lot of that reduction, was kind of truing up what the development projections are going to be and allocating those funds or those salaries over. The elections department went down $52, and that was just due to the decrease in salaries. The finance department, same thing with engineering. There wasn't any additional requests other than just the reduction due to moving some of the finance salaries over to the TIDs. The recreation department, senior travel gets their $2,000 that they were asking for.
Did you provide the report?
Not yet, so I think maybe we should make it contingent on that.
Yeah.
Right.
For real,
That
though.
report
I mean,
he needs to
he
provide.
needs to provide the report. I've seen multiple emails from Lisa to him, and I've seen crickets in terms of a response. So.
And to touch on that, because I go to that first Wednesday of the month senior lunch, and there's another show added, another travel show, and I made it clear to John Bignansky, the president of that organization, that because he was concerned about funding, and I said, look, we can have the funding, we need to have the receipts, we need to have the invoices. If it's another bus ride, we want the.
They're separate programs.
But I'm talking about, we've got 2 things. So we got the travel program issue with that, and then we have the meals that are going up, I think $2 a meal, which is general inflation. I said, we will find the money somewhere, but to your point, I mean, they operate with an excess every year. So they're not going to get, like they get very nervous if they're going to get cut. And I'm like, your budget is not getting cut. It's about 125 seniors show on that first Wednesday.
Might actually be a lot more.
Well, there's 130 some that are there. I mean, are members, but they don't show up every first Wednesday.
Right.
But still, there's 120 plus that show there, and they're glued to everything you're saying, especially about their budget, and to make sure that works. I mean, I'm a member.
Yeah.
You can join at 55. Just wait. So it comes fast, John. So we just did reassurances, but to Danielle's point is, we may have to keep some things open. Well, we've asked. We've asked for those numbers, but I just want to make sure so everybody's clear. We don't want to make any cuts.
Yeah, I do want to say I think that the senior group, John Bagansky and Mark aren't mainly our contacts. I think that they do a really great job of bringing us the information and working with us. And I'll leave it there. And I'll leave it there. Yes. But yes, And it's a good program. Gets them out of the house and among others, and you know, they're very much a part of the community, so it's good opportunity for them.
And John, just to your point, Howard, I just pulled up Oak Creek's budget, and their levy is only $2 million more than ours, and their revenues and expenditures are just about the same exact amount as ours. So that was the recommended changes that I had for the general fund that keeps each department head operating and running. It still allows for $150,000 of contingency that could be used throughout the year. And it keeps it flat with that levy increase. So if anybody has any questions on that, it's probably going to take you a little bit of time to digest. But
this budget, when it's prepared, is it like they use a certain software?
we use
all the
BSNA.
input? Like, do they use it all each individual?
Each individual department head inputs their budget into the budget software, yes.
Is it broken down by month when it's expenses, or is it just
I can break it down however I want, but
when they put?
when they put it in, it's they can see as many years going back to 2012 that they want of activity, and then the current year's activity is typically through June because they're inputting it in July. So it's activity for the first half of the year is what they're seeing.
And when they input, do they put, if over a year their budget, do they put by the month, or is
Meeting's
it
gonna be, or is this the meeting?
Which meeting, sir?
Yeah, I don't know, which meeting, is there one tonight or something?
This is the finance committee meeting.
Oh, no, I
It
just,
started at 5. It's not real fun, but
I could use some finance. So, on Lover's Lane, that whole project that's gonna go down like tomorrow or something, do you know about that one? There's a meeting on that, or it's just coming through, I guess, is that the plan?
Yeah,
No,
I have
you don't.
no
well, we
idea.
got me, the mayor, and the director of administration. We're
Yeah,
both.
Okay,
And
so,
you
Yeah.
got you had 3 alders in here, unless they know something.
no.
no? Okay, thank you.
All right.
Sorry. Is he talking like a town hall meeting for
You said
Water
the
Tower
library?
Park?
I don't know. Could be.
I don't know anything.
We got the director of library right here. She's saying no.
No idea.
I was thinking Clifford's tonight for the no vote for the original.
Really?
For what?
Oh.
A no vote.
Having like a party? Like
For
a vote
what?
no party?
Yeah. Wow. Is it vote yes? That says next one.
They're gonna spend the dollar amount equivalent
It's like
to
6
having a party there at Clifford's for the meal
Right.
versus what they would be spending annually.
That part is that's ironically funny, yes.
Right?
Right. I mean,
It's a restaurant.
you know, if you put it in those,
Yeah.
that the perspective is accurate though.
Accurate appraisal. So what are you thinking now, Danielle? You got the floor. What do you want to do?
I'm thinking that I'm going to pull up my little motion note here and answer any final questions on the general fund, and if anybody would like to change anything, add anything, or recommend to the council these following changes that I have on this spreadsheet.
I'll throw this in because it popped into my head after the fact, but another one of those permit fees that stand out for me, title permits. So my understanding is what's been occurring is there's several different departments internally that have been handling these title permit requests. And we have a person that has been a long time asking for these permits. They go through engineering, and our longtime employee has only been charging $5 for those. And then we have clerk's department charging $25. Nobody's being consistent, so I do have an internal meeting. We're going to sit down, work out the entire process, who's going to own this, and then also determine what the appropriate fee is, because there's an individual, and probably more than him, that I believe is a real estate agent. And so he's getting these title permits from us and then selling them to others at a higher rate. Yeah.
It's genius.
Well, and what it really is special assessment letters. It's realtors call and they are saying, I have this property. Again, we dealt with it in Waterford. I have this property that I'm looking to sell, and I need to find out from you guys if it has any outstanding property taxes, any outstanding utility bills, any outstanding special assessments. And so instead of one department, which typically is the clerk's office, they take this letter gets filled out by the real estate agent or the homeowner, they pay their fee, and then the clerk will distribute that information to finance and inspection and make sure that there's no outstanding fees. Whatever outstanding fees there are, they put it on this letter, and this letter then goes back to the real estate agent. But we've come across issues where in the finance department, real estate agents are calling the finance department themselves and have been doing it for 25 years, and the finance department didn't know that this internal procedure and policy was already in place. So they're just providing this information for free. And so now these people who are asking to be charged are saying, well, hey, I've been getting this information for free for 25 years. Why am I having to pay for it now? And you have to say, well, unfortunately, the city of Franklin didn't follow the internal policy that they had in place. And so now that's where this conversation is going to be had to make sure that you don't take any phone calls or any, you just send it right to the clerk's office or whoever is going to handle it to make sure that those, because I mean, $25 a pop, and you're typically, I mean,
everybody's spending an adequate
Right.
amount of time obtaining that information. The clerk is putting together quite a bit of information, and so we've talked about how we would have a form where they need to provide most of the information, and then we can complete the remaining piece and also charge them and have it's a lot of the left hand is not talking to the right hand, and you know, people have their internal department processes and they're not familiar with other departments until you start finding that, you know, oh, wait a minute, so you're doing that? Oh, how is this working? So we're just trying to fix those internal processes and also charge, again, adequately for the time that's spent.
So
technically,
pass it on to the city?
Basically, yeah.
what's that? I didn't hear what you said.
I'm just learning that title companies actually pass
Title
this
company.
back off to the community.
I don't know how they
Well,
do.
Yeah.
Well,
No,
they-
What I'm doing is
They
go
have to
ahead.
get it one way or
They
the
have
other.
to get the
right?
data.
So if the agent can do it for less or
And
think
then
he
they
knows
charge more. Yeah.
in somewhere,
Well, I'm just thinking most of it's open records. You can just look on the tax roll and stuff like that.
Yeah, but as far as like internal like if they have a deferred special assessment on their property, I mean, for example, Waterford, they get roughly $6,000 a year for special assessment letters, and that's a community of 5,200. I mean, we are probably losing out on, you know, 5 times that.
homeowners association dues are typically included in there too. They want the city to, you know, if they can.
Yeah,
So, yep, all of that.
okay.
Yeah. So just, you know, some things that we're coming across that
Yeah.
don't necessarily make sense that we're going to make sure it makes
Well, it
sense.
should just be efficient internal operations too,
Yeah.
instead of having a bunch of different people running around, you know, all doing part of it. Just
Exactly.
standardize it,
Yep.
create the process, and, you know,
100%.
Well, and just to make a point, like I said, Waterford in a community of 5,200 collects 6,000. We've only been collecting roughly 8. So that just shows you that there's some internal breakdown
Yep.
and how
Money.
you can, yeah, like I said, money laying on the table. So
Yep.
Well, and I would suggest too that if anybody complains about it, you just say that we have implemented a new policy.
and you've been getting a really good deal for a long time.
Well, that's the same thing with the assessors. I mean,
Yep.
there's certain things that have been broken for a number of years. Now we're righting the ship, and there's going to be this painful period, but there's got to be the reality point. So,
Well, and right is right.
well, that's the thing, right? Transparency.
Yep.
Danielle, you got the floor. You move along.
I do, yeah. So again, I mean, any other questions? If not, then
One
we can-
question, because we talked about it last time, and I don't know if we landed on this was formally what was happening or not happening. You mentioned PD and fire 3% raise? Is everyone else at 2 then? Or
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, so again, I figured that there was some feedback internally and then from this committee that I felt it was just leaning towards leaving it a flat rate instead of doing the resident, non-resident. And if we wanted to have a further discussion for next year, there's that possibility. But this budget implements a 3% for fire, 3% for police, and 2% for all others.
On that note, though, I do want to just share some little tidbits that was provided to us by Dan Dubniak, who is on the Board of Water Commissioners, and also part of City of Waukesha. And he said that they do a cost of living budgeted at 3.5% for the City of Waukesha, their increase, and that is actually less than the cost of living, is my understanding. Or is it like 3% and they did like a 0.5% more?
Yeah, I think CPI is like 3.
Yeah, and then market studies, they do a market study every 5 years to remain current and competitive, and we continue to miss the boat.
We
So
gotta,
just-
we gotta figure this part out in a hurry.
Yeah, yeah.
Fortunately, it's the funding piece. That
Yes, exactly, exactly. But hopefully, you know, bringing our schedules and our fees up where they should be, every little bit's gonna help.
Should offset it.
Okay.
All right.
So again, if there's no other changes or questions, then I suggest or recommend that the motion be recommend to the Common Council the 2025 Mayor's recommended budget as follows, included in the summary listed. Oh God, that works. Including a summary listing of the actions ultimately adopted by the committee, and then it would just be with the attached schedule that is provided here.
So that's the motion?
Yep.
The memo dated October 22, 24, right? This one?
Yes, but I would do both because it's the same
Yeah.
information. Yeah.
Right. Just we have a reference to
Yep.
document.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion on the recommended mayor's 2025 budget with the amendments that we were just discussing? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And so the only other piece here is the sewer piece,
Which is
which is on the back.
back page of this.
So what was initially put in the mayor's recommended budget was all of the exact information from 2024. I will say that I did not have enough time to put it together without making some changes and needing to meet with the water and sewer superintendent and then ultimately with the personnel change. It was easier to meet with Glenn Beardsley, who is now the interim, and him and I put together the budget now with the current information based on his recommended needs for the department. The personnel change from the 2-3 split to 2%, and then also all of the actual information regarding the revenue piece. I finally got the information from MMSD, which is projecting a 6.7% increase in their fees. So ultimately that is a pass-through to the user. Overall, the user fee is based on our budget plus MMSD's fees plus. So I think last year MMSD recommended an 8% change is what their initial projections were. Overall, the sewer rates increased 4%. So I increased the budget by 7-ish% to capture all of that, but it's not all captured on the residents. So just due to the other revenue that we do receive in the sewer fund. So the changes that I will discuss are overall, the revenue piece went up almost $300,000. Again, that was due to the changes. MMSD, we are receiving, and actually, I think I did that wrong, because it should be, give me 1 second, because I'm looking at this now and it says 25,000 and it should be 250,000
For the grants?
for the
You're talking-
grant. Yes.
Can I make a joke about a zero being a placeholder, so it's irrelevant? Doesn't mean
Which is funny, because we've already had some changes because of missing a zero, that darn thing. So the revenue should be, the proposed budget should be 7,334,576.
Say that again, please.
3. Yep, 7,334,576. Which ends up being 521,500 for the change.
That's on the revenue side.
Correct.
You're gonna have that change. I'd rather have it on the revenue side.
Right.
So I'd be happy to provide, I should have my spreadsheet on how I came up with the recommended revenue projections for the metered sales. I was just going to pull that up. But ultimately, it's the meter user fee. I take all of the information actuals for quarter 1, 2, and 3. I have data going back to 2012 that I typically do like a 6 to 10 year average on each quarter. The actual users, the number of users, and the actual amounts collected. And then I do a small increase based on whatever MMSD gives us. Like I said, I did roughly 7% on the overall fees, and I increased the users by 2%. And then that's how I got the overall increase in revenue. So those increases looked like residential was an increase of 140,000. Commercial was 66,000, which is probably very generous because I know that Glenn told me that Saputo is now fully being built or fully being collected as of quarter 4, and then also again some further development in 2025, large projects. So Karma being another one. So commercial is conservative for 2025. Industrial up 8,500, public authority up 15,000, and multifamily is up 60,000. So that's where those overall revenue changes come from. And then on the expenditure side, the expenditures went up 279,000. There was very small decreases in the personnel, some increase in software maintenance, hazardous waste, dumping. There was a couple that went down, which was uniforms, fuel, televising supplies, and overall sewer fees. And those decreases were just based on what he predicted he would be using in 2025. And then ultimately, under televising supplies, the reason it went down 42,000 is because he needs to purchase a new sewer camera, which we put on the capital side and took it out of the operating side. And then the reduction in sewer fees is because I got the overall final number from MMSD. So their number versus my projected number, their number was lower by 45,000, so I implemented that as well. And then just small increases in electricity, gas, maintenance. The big changes are depreciation, and those where I had the finalized numbers from our fixed asset software to put in the budget. And then on the capital side, when Mike was here, Mike Roberts, he had anticipated doing some sewer work, some sanitary sewer work on one of the force mains, some pump rehab, and Glenn just determined that based on some of the other needs in the sewer department that not all of that work would have been able to be done in 2025, so we took that out. But he did anticipate some fleet through the fleet program. I believe it was replacing 5 of his vehicles. Half of it would be expended to water, half of it would be expended to sewer, and that was roughly $25,000 for the 2025 year. On the sewer side, office equipment, he needs some new SCADA equipment, and then a couple PC replacements. There's the new camera in there. I'm trying to remember what he told me. Building improvements, we took the building improvements out. He didn't anticipate doing any building improvements. And then there was $50,000 for other capital equipment, and I honestly don't remember what that was for, but he must have needed it. He did say that he wanted to start working on the St. Martin's pump and the St. Martin's force main project, and so he did start looking at some quotes and to start the design in 2025 of each of those projects. And so we anticipated $35,000 for the St. Martin's pump design and St. Martin's force main design at $60,000. So we put the design work in the budget with anticipation of construction in 26. We had $675,000 in sanitary sewer rehab in the budget. We took $475,000 out because, again, he said he wasn't going to be doing as much work as Mike had anticipated, but we are getting reimbursed from MMSD for a lot of that work. So that's where that $250,000 is coming from. And so that gives us the sewer budget.
Well done on everything.
Thank you.
So we, good.
So if anybody has questions on that, if not, again, we would make the motion the same way, recommending the sewer piece to the common council based on the memo and the spreadsheet.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
We have a motion and a second regarding the sewer fund proposed 2025 budget, basically as presented and recommended by the mayor with the, again, changes noted in the memo of October 22, 2024. Further discussion? Hearing none, seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. That will get recommended to the council as well.
Correct. And I think the only last thing on the agenda is if there's any final changes anywhere in the budget that anybody wants to discuss, overall in any department. I will speak to the library since Jennifer is here. And I know, sorry, Jennifer, we had the meeting at 5 today instead of 6. So
Wasn't it posted at 6?
5.
No, 5.
but that's okay. So what we touched on was over the last 2 weeks since we got our our more preliminary assessments from the assessor, we were able to really dial down what our tax levy is going to be and what the tax impact was going to be on the residents. And so with that, we had to make some adjustments, reduce in some areas. We were able to increase in some areas. And so overall, this budget is now proposing an extra $25,000 in the library levy.
That's huge.
I know we said it wasn't everything you requested, but
I mean, I really appreciate it. I
So-
really do. It's not probably going to be enough to prevent.
some of the challenges we've had, yes. And so there was going to be a further discussion, obviously, with you after the meeting,
I
but
don't want to be like, oh, that's awesome.
right. But wanted to make that
Yeah, I
note
wouldn't say
since
that
you were
part,
here.
because
We can go back.
We're really happy to get that 25 grand. Real happy to get it.
So that was one of the other final items, or final list items that I had. I know we have budget adoption coming up on, actually, what I will say, since we have 3 alders here, completely my bad. Every year we have to publish the budget in the paper, and it has always been that we publish it on a Wednesday. It goes out the Wednesday 2 weeks before the budget. So I got all ready, prepared it, sent it in last Wednesday to be published tomorrow, and they told me that the type of display ad that needed to be presented for the budget needed to be in by Monday. And so we had to push it back. They had it already, but they couldn't run it until the 30th, which does not give us enough time for the Class 1 notice. It needs to be published for 15 days, which is why we canceled the November 12th special meeting for adoption of the budget, and we're just going to adopt it on the 19th, which is already a normal council meeting. So that is what happened, if anybody was wondering, because I don't know if Maggie has even sent out the meeting or the notice yet saying that the special meeting was canceled.
She said it was canceled, yeah.
Okay, then yes, so that is the reasoning, so I wanted to let you know that. So the budget
So when
adoption
you do
is,
get pushback
that's what I'm saying.
by some people that are looking to stir, that's why that happened.
Yeah.
Not happy about it, just
I'm not happy either, but that's,
Did they change something in their practice? Is that
to be honest, I have no idea.
Who do we use for that? The Journal?
Gannett,
The now.
Gannett or Gannett, yeah,
the-
something.
Oh, it gets in the Now piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's like an annual, here's what we're gonna use to.
Bingo.
publish-
Our official
yeah.
newspaper, yeah.
Yeah.
So now I know for next year, I will definitely get that in way earlier than. But so final budget adoption is November 19th. I know that Finance Committee won't meet before then, but there's nothing prohibiting us to amend or make any additional changes prior to. I know last year, again, as the next couple weeks transpire, I will get some more finalized numbers, and if I see any significant changes, those will be talked about at the November 6th meeting, and or I know we made some final changes on the actual night of adoption, so even if finance won't see them, they will be coming forward. I'll make sure to have something on the agenda for the 6th if the council wants to talk about any final budget items, or if I have any changes prior. So
What are the biggest variables that that are still remain outstanding in terms of unknowns? Do we have all the state aids and numbers in?
Yep, the only thing that I won't really get a finalized number on, but it doesn't really change, is the general transportation aid. And that typically comes like the first week of December. But again, it's almost spot on from
Okay.
their estimated. And then just right now, which won't even happen until after Board of Review, we're using what the assessor's values are right now prior to Board of Review. So those are the only two pretty big pieces.
Okay.
The other big piece that I think we talked about last year was the self-insurance fund, and that high claim cost that we were going to have that kind of hit us last year, but I don't really anticipate any of that.
Oh,
for
we
this
haven't
year.
seen any. We haven't seen.
We haven't
that.
seen the self-insurance fund yet, no. But the anticipated change for them was 2%.
Okay.
And we accounted for that already. And
Correct.
anticipated that 2%.
Correct.
So it'd just be if it was more than that.
Yes.
Yeah,
Then I would
and
bring
we-
that forward.
And we committed to the increasing it by 10 grand too, correct?
What?
No.
Oh, you're talking about the stop loss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kind of offset.
Yeah, the other finalized numbers would be the insurance. We don't really get those until December, but they've provided us some pretty good estimates, which is the ones that I
Preliminary,
presented
okay.
tonight. Yep.
John, you had a comment?
If there's no further business, I move we adjourn.
A second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Who
Opposed?
seconded that?
I did.
John.
early.
All right.